shot play parade there in that game. So they're such a well-balanced team, John, to your point, that they have the ability to hurt you in so many different ways. And it is nitpicky to start finding ways where they're not hurting teams.
Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365. Jody McDonald along with John McMullen. And we got Geoff Mosher from InsideTheBirds.com and the podcast to jump in with us. He's looking borderline smug. Now, that's me maybe overanalyzing.
Wow.
Like the referees pointing to the giving A.J. Brown the penalty for pointing to the opposition. Am I reading you right, Mosher? This team is that good right now that you've gotten a little smug, guilty of charge. I'll take the same hit here. I'm kind of smug about the Eagles' chances right now.
I thought this was a personal shot, Mosher.
First of all, I've been called a lot worse. My Jody. Jody has called me worse than smug. So no,
I kid because I care, and I can.
Appreciate it. It's my morning look, but listen, man, if the Eagles want to feel smug about being 7-0, they sure can. There's no reason for them not to.
Yeah. I mean, boy, I find it harder and harder to nitpick with this team, Jeff. Special teams still, some other Brandon had a penalty shouldn't have taken, and you had another fake punt that converted. But
yeah.
I keep saying that's going to bite them in the what in upcoming weeks, but they're so good offensively and defensively. Somebody asked me, what do you think they should do? It might have been Jody, but I've been doing so many shows recently. But what can they do better offensively? And I got a tough time coming up with it. Do you have anything?
Well, it's funny. We spent a lot of our bye week on Inside the Birds doing the whole self-scouting thing. Where can teams improve? Every team, no matter how good it is, goes into the bye week. They look at the data and the analytics, and they see what do we do well, and how do we make sure that everybody else who sees what we do well doesn't then stop that. So whether it's running different plays out of the same formation or trying some new things like they did yesterday to make sure that they're not stale. The one thing we talked about with the Eagles is sort of bringing the shot play back into their offense, because the last three games, the Jacksonville game, the Arizona game, and then the game, the Dallas game going into the bye, they were only averaging around 7 yards per attempt.
They did.
So, and that was a big drop off from the first three games. And so what do? They just come out and do nothing but shot plays, obviously. So yeah, there you go. And we thought Quez Watkins was maybe somebody that could find a role in the offense to be the shot play guy. But no, I guess A.J. Brown and who would have thought Zach Pascal would join the shot play parade there in that game. So they're such a well-balanced team, John, to your point, that they have the ability to hurt you in so many different ways, and it is nitpicky to start finding ways where they're not hurting teams.
All right, since we've gotten nitpicky, let's see, waited 25 minutes because I certainly noticed this yesterday. The offensive coaches, play callers, Sirianni, whatever, were on top of things and smart enough to see maybe we need to get our superstar players off the field, including the quarterback. So they subbed out a bunch of guys, a couple on the offensive line, the QB. On defense, the back seven never moved off the field. They kept their safeties out there. They kept their corners out there for every snap, and they kept their linebackers out there for every snap. I said to John here on Friday, listen, if the Eagles get a blowout, which was a possibility, and they did, does Nakobe Dean do anything other than special teams anymore? He never sees a snap from scrimmage. Now, I'm not suggesting that he should be just getting in there for sake purposes when the game is yet to be decided. Kaiser White and TJ Edwards have been good enough. They don't deserve to come off the field. But if you're going to pull off other players because you're acknowledging it's a blowout, how do you not get Nakobe Dean onto the field?
You know what? It's a fair point. I can't really argue it. It would have been a pretty good opportunity to get him on the field there. I can't imagine. I don't know if it was asked in the press conference, John. You could probably answer that if why they pulled the offensive guys in defense.
You know, that's mainly I was looking for JG in the locker room. I did not see him. I was going to ask him, but you know, Nick's not going to answer that question. So I will ask Jonathan this week. Well, hopefully
Tuesday, happy Tuesday, not for Nakobe Dean since he can't get on the field.
Yeah, I mean,
did they have if they wanted to pull their starting corners, they could have played McPherson at one.
Yeah, exactly.
They've been able to play at the other corner because Job was not active.
Josiah Scott got hurt.
Scott got hurt.
Yeah. So they could have, you know, as you mentioned, they could have they didn't put Zach in there, which surprised me a little bit.
Right.
Nakobe as well. They did do stuff on the defensive line, like Brandon was dealing with a hamstring.
Right.
So he didn't play that much. They got They even had Kyron Johnson. I'm just looking at the snap counts involved a little bit. Patrick Johnson up at 26 reps. So they did it on the defensive line, the front seven.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a rotational position to begin with. They didn't do it in the secondary. I mean, Slay and Bradbury played every snap.
Yeah.
And the linebackers played the vast majority of the game. Avante played the vast majority. Yeah, I probably would have pulled them.
Yeah, the only thing I would wonder is if body count there in the backups would have made it possible. You know, they lost two guys in the secondary and they're not very deep at corner anyway. So
yeah, but I mean, I would have put Zach out there, and I would have put Nakobe out.
Yeah, I think so.
That was one. I don't know why, other than, you know, one of the things you talked about self-scout, Jeff, the Eagles came up with 8 categories. Now, Nick wouldn't tell us what those 8 categories were. 3 were pretty obvious to me. The second half scoring, offensively, tackling defensively, and then, of course, special teams. There were some, you know, they want to get Dallas Goedert more involved in third down. Ball security. I don't know how they get better in ball security.
They're the only team in the NFL that hasn't lost a fumble, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 0 fumbles lost. They're positive in every category. They're plus 14 on the season. I don't know how you get better there.
Yeah.
But to get back to the original point of why no Zach McPherson, why no Nakobe Dean, maybe the tackling issue. I don't know. Maybe they want to keep him sharp for the tackling part of it.
Yeah, and, you know, Chauncey is still learning that position. I mean, he's played well, and he has
Kayvon. I should have put Kayvon barely, but I think Kayvon had 1 snap. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a fair point. It's a fair criticism, Jody. But you know, so yesterday's news.
If they had done it across the board, if we hadn't seen Juergens get into the game for Kelsey, I'd say, all right, they just stay with their starters. That's the team philosophy. We play every single snap, no matter what the scoreboard says. You pulled the MVP quarterback to get Gardner Minshew in there. You put Juergens in there. The one side of the ball did it, the other didn't. That doesn't make any sense to me. That means that either Steichen or Gannon aren't on the same page with Sirianni right now.
They pulled the whole offensive line except for Landon Dickerson. And on the first play, with the new offensive line, Landon was the guy who got called for the penalty.
Go figure. Go figure.
But
well, you know, the short turnaround clearly, I imagine that had a lot to do with it too, to get those guys out of there on offense.
Yeah, and you know, defensively, you can make the same argument. I know, you know, they were working on
short week for the defense too this week coming up.
True.
They were working in the locker room. They had the trainers. They had everything set up. They had the bikes set up. They had the back thing set up. They had guys getting massages after the game.
I believe it.
They were very focused on getting guys bounced back quickly. So they know, you know, Thursday. As for the defense, I don't know. That's all I can come up with. They want to sharpen those guys up because the tackling hasn't been great.
Fire everybody.
Yeah.
We're not going over.
JG gave up 13 points, though. 6 sacks. Is everyone happy this week? No, everybody's not happy this week.
Well, they should be.
So you're saying, John, it's not a legitimate and fair question?
No, it's a fair question. I'll ask him the question, but I'm going to default to his I think he's having a great year. everybody knows I like Jonathan. Everybody knows we're kind of close, but he's a good coach. So I give him the benefit of the doubt.
Hold on. Let me ask John. I said to you on Friday before you left, will you get a chance to talk to John again? And would he get Nakobe Dean in? You didn't make that request, did you?
I already knew the answer. I did.
Well, if you had, maybe he would have thought of it. Maybe he was so wrapped up in game planning and making sure they got their it went right over his head. And if his buddy, his boy McMullen, had said something to him, maybe we'd have thought long and hard enough to go, maybe we need to get our subs in here.
I think bad job by the assistant defensive coordinator,
exactly.
John McMullen.
Yeah, actually, McMullen's now he's sounding. You were looking. He's sounding a little smug.
Actually, well, he's got a good defense. I don't know if people have noticed, but he's got a good defense. I thought, and I said on the show, if they blow them out, maybe he'll get a couple reps at the end of the game. I thought maybe he would.
Oh, 22 wasn't enough? Getting up by 22 points wasn't
enough? I'm surprised he didn't. I'm surprised he didn't get some. I'm surprised Kayvon. I'm really surprised Zach McPherson didn't get some reps. That's the biggest surprise to me. I thought he would come in for Slay relatively early. So I'm a little surprised. I admit it, but the difference is I'll ask the question, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, it's a good defense.
It's a very good defense, but it's still
this is definitely some 7-0 problems right here, man.
Yeah,
exactly. And we know where they go from here, which is Houston, which, oh, by the way, they got a problem. They're not very good. I won't say the Eagles just have to throw their helmets out there on the field, but it's damn close to it. What are they looking to do on this quick turnaround week, Jeff? What do you think the game plan is? What do you think the coach is going to try and accomplish on a Thursday night trip down south?
Yeah, I mean, I think you tend to keep it simpler on the short rest, which probably actually favors the Eagles over the Texans, because when the Eagles keep it simple, they go to their ground game. And then the Texans play a lot of two deep anyway, so they're with Lovie Smith there. So I think it invites you to want to run in the first place. So that'll be really the challenge that faces the Texans. Can they stop the Eagles' run game? And I think for the Eagles will draw up a few things, but for the most part, they'll do what they do. I don't think this is not the week where you see a lot of gadgetry, where you see a lot of new. If there's anything new, it's that they were planning on it during the bye week as well and looking a little bit ahead. But you try not to do that. So I think it'll be a fairly honest kind of game plan, and you just go out there, and it's really – you have to look at the situation like Nick Sirianni, where you're the better team, you have the better talent. The one thing you can't do is, make goofball mistakes, turn the ball over, which they haven't done. Keep it simple, come out with a W, play good defense, and then you're 8-0 with an extra rest.
Well, one legitimate concern, not nitpicking, Jordan Davis is going to miss some time.
Yeah.
High ankle sprain, typically a 4 or 6 week injury, depending. He's going to get an MRI. Probably already has this morning, but he doesn't play a ton statistically, but I think enough people don't realize how important he is to those 5-man fronts. They don't really have a backup for Jordan Davis who can do those same things.
Right.
That's one where I go, then you have to play more 4-man fronts. Are you as effective? That could have a domino effect in a negative fashion for this Eagles defense.
Well, they didn't have him last year, and they played 5-man fronts on first and second down or against the run with Jannard Avery. And so that's what you have to wonder. Do they go back to doing that where it's more of a, they don't have the zero technique in Jordan Davis, so they go back to playing – like Fletch in a 4-eye or Javon in a 4-eye. And then you've got, you can use sort of Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat as your ends with Reddick playing that sort of Jannard Avery role. So it still gives you like a 5-man front. If you want to do that in first and second down, then you get into your 4-man fronts to rush the passer. Or, one of the things that they liked about Marlon Tuipulotu coming out of USC 2 years ago was that he actually played over the center at times. He played both a 3 technique and over the center at USC, And it's one of the reasons they liked him in the 5th round. They thought he had that kind of multiplicity to be able to handle both. Now, he's clearly not going to get at 305 pounds. He's not going to give you what you get from Jordan Davis. That's why I thought for a little bit, early in the offseason that maybe a guy like Noah Ellis that they brought in from Utah.
So did I.
Idaho, would have a chance to make the team as the backup nose because he was a 350-pound guy. So either they're going to be schematically different like last year, or they're going to try to see if a guy like Marlon Tuipulotu, maybe Marvin Wilson from the practice squad, can sort of be the zero technique. It wouldn't surprise me if they tried a little bit of both just to see what they can get away with there.
The reason why I think you're right, Jeff, about them reverting to last year is at least this week, that was as good as Fletcher Cox and Hargrave have played all year long. I think if you were grading out all 7 games, both of them will get their highest grade yesterday. Now, part of that was because Davis was on the field, the plays he was on the field, and he does make everything a little bit easier for the defensive line. But they were as active and as mobile as I'd seen them all year long. I don't know how much you attribute that to the Steelers' offensive line not being real good, but I'm not going to go into a panic mode because Davis is out, because the guys around him all picked them up big time yesterday.
Yeah, well, I'll throw in another factor that might have lit a little fire under, especially under Javon Hargrave, is that the addition of Robert Quinn gave the Eagles, if they want, the ability to kind of turn back the clock a little bit and play a little NASCAR package, which would move Brandon Graham inside, put Reddick and Quinn on the outside, and that only leaves you with one other guy next to Graham on the inside, either Cox or Hargrave. And if you were going with the hot hand, I don't think Hargrave has had the kind of year this year up until yesterday, right, that you saw from him last year. And he's also on the last year of his deal. He doesn't have an extension. They're playing a different defensive line front. So, look, I don't know if that was in their heads or anything like that, but certainly when you add another pass rusher to the mix and you have more opportunities to put different kind of personnel groupings, then everybody's got to look around and say, well, someone's losing snaps because this guy's here. I don't want it to be me, right? So then all of a sudden you see like a race to the quarterback on Sunday there.
Most, let's talk about the NFC East, baby. Who didn't? Now the Giants finally lose, but otherwise it's 3 for 4. So I'll give Bill Yates credit for this. Per Elias Sports, the NFC East is 23-8, win percentage of 742, the highest combined winning percentage for a division through 8 weeks since the merger in 1970. Wow. Who didn't see that coming? I know I did. This was the best division in the history, in the Super Bowl era.
Yeah,
we didn't have that.
I knew the NFC East was going to be better because of the old, axiom that it couldn't be any worse after 3 or 4 years. And obviously a lot of teams that, the Giants had made a significant number of moves in the coaching staff and front office, and then they had a bunch of picks. And I thought Dallas was going to be a very good team. I still think Dallas is the second best team in the NFC. When all
so do I.
When Dak Prescott is the quarterback. Yeah. And Washington's got a really good defense, and I don't know why every year for the last 3 years it's taken them 6 weeks to figure out how to use their good defense, but they have good defensive talent. Now, some of it is a little bit obviously schedule-oriented. I don't know if they're really the best division in the NFC East, but I did note yesterday it's the only division in the NFC that has all 4 teams that are at least 500 or better. Yeah. A feat matched only by the AFC East, which is another
all
crazy.
About East football. You're right.
Yeah, like when has the AFC East ever been known for anything other than the Patriots dominating or the Bills last year? So who would have thought that would have been the other division to be all above 500 or all 500 or better?
Let me run this by both you guys. I'm hoping neither one of you saw it because you won't come up with it. I saw this tweet last night. One of the few quarterbacks in the NFL, 4 to be exact, who have a better quarterback rating than Jalen Hurts is Geno Smith, who beat the Giants yesterday. Do you know who Geno Smith said after the game yesterday? After you get a win, you said, we got this one for, you dedicate the win. Geno Smith dedicated the win yesterday after the Seahawks beat the Giants. Did you see who he dedicated it to?
I did. So I'll leave it in Johnny Mac's hands if he can guess.
Johnny Mac, did you see this?
I did not. So I am out of the loop.
Hold on to your seat for this one, Johnny.
Jeff and I will tell you this. He dedicated the win to Ben McAdoo and Jerry
Wow.
Reese.
All right. Yeah.
For his 1 year as the Giant backup. He replaces Eli Manning, who loses a 210-game consecutive starting streak, and then is immediately back on the bench because the owner called McAdoo into the office and said, "What the hell are you doing replacing Geno Smith? Eli Manning with Geno Smith." But he went out of his way to say they believed in him, the former Giant failed head coach and since departed general manager is who Geno Smith thanked yesterday. None of the Giants, none of the regular players, none of his teammates. The 5 years ago guys who gave the job as a backup.
I'm not a big Ben McAdoo guy. By the way, the Eagles almost hired Ben McAdoo, so be very thank the football gods that didn't come to pass. I believe the story is he turned around at the Molly Pitcher service area. The Giants talked him back. But anyway, Jerry Reese is a guy who I always liked, and I think it took the Giants years and years and years and years to recover from firing Jerry Reese, and they finally seem to have gotten it right with Joe Shane. So I like that. I like that, and they did believe. Hey, who believed in him? So I applaud him for that.
I think
because he's playing very well.
If I were Geno Smith, I think I'd go with Pete Carroll, who gave him the starting job.
Well,
year.
yeah,
he was trying to rub it in against the Giants, though.
That's the way I would look at it.
Yeah, he's trying to.
That was a little nod to the Giants.
He's trying to spike the football too, a little bit, probably.
Moons, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. And Geno, hey man, he's playing well, and the Seahawks, nobody had them as a surprise team, but let's talk about the quarterback here, Moshe. I mean, we were talking about him before you came on. Nick Sirianni, I said, he says certain things, and you know this, Jeff, that become trite because he says them so much. Dog mentality, blah, blah, competitive advantage, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. One thing he said about Jalen Hurts I started tuning out was, I don't know what his ceiling is, but he's going to reach it. Speaking to his football IQ, his work ethic, just his desire to get better. He was right, man. This kid, he could beat you running the football. He didn't run it at all yesterday. He just beat them throwing the football down the field, as you mentioned, shot plays. He's great with that go route down the sideline, dropping it in the bucket. Tremendous at it. We know his mobility, but the thing that impresses me most is decision making. He's making the right decision. He's turned the football over twice through 7 games, twice. And Nick Sirianni blames himself for one. He threw an interception against Minnesota on a bad screen call to Kenny Gainwell and a lot of traffic. And then the other one was the pick 6 and bad weather against Jacksonville. That's it.
Yeah. And the Gainwell one, I don't know. I mean, I think you can blame Gainwell among the three.
Yeah.
And
Nick takes the blame, but you should blame Kenny. But either way, it's not Jalen's fault.
He's, even when he was struggling, when he took over for Carson Wentz 2 years ago and had to play, and they went 1-4 or in his starts. And going back to last year in the first 6 games when they weren't doing well, he was not one who often put the ball in harm's way. That game against the Giants where he had 3 interceptions was the exception for him, not the rule. And then, of course, against the Tampa Bay Bucks in the playoffs again, that's one of the best defenses he faced in his career. But for the most part, he's been a good caretaker of the football, and especially when you consider the volume with which he has the ball in his hands, not just as a passer, but also as a runner, the hits that he takes, you get more tired when you're running around like that. So that part of it has not been surprising. I think like you said, the biggest development is that he knows where he wants to go with the ball now. I think he's doing a much better job of understanding what the defense is trying to do to him and the Eagles offense. The Eagles offense helps keep defenses off balance by mixing the RPO with the run and the pass. But there are times, like the Minnesota game too, where they ask Jalen to especially in the first half, to throw the ball at a 65 to 70% clip, and you're not running that much, and they're still able to move the chains because he's doing an excellent job of finding his targets. And I think he does a way better job when he does get out of the pocket of keeping his eyes down the field, knowing where he wants to go with the football. He's made tremendous progress there. I mean, I don't know what his ceiling is either, but he seems to be taking a step forward each week to the point where you don't even wonder about him anymore. You just, you expect pretty good play out of the quarterback, if not very good or great play.
And a couple of guys I want to give kudos to on the offense, because Jalen and AJ are going to grab all the headlines. Well, they should, because they were both that great. And even Zach Pascal with a touchdown, kind of surprising when you say the throw it downfield play. Didn't think it was going to be Zach, but sure enough, he got his TD. Again, Dallas Goedert, 6 targets, 6 receptions. He catches everything that goes his way, gets first downs. And, oh, by the way, I caught it not watching game film. It was just that obvious. He had some killer blocks yesterday that sprung big plays. He really is underrated for the fact that he might be as good at blocking. They got a couple of offensive linemen that double as tight end, backup tight ends that are actually blockers. No, he's one of the best receiving tight ends who can block with any tight end in the National Football League. He just leveled a couple of guys in their game yesterday.
Yeah.
Is kind of flying under the radar, but he looks like an NFC Pro Bowl tight end to me.
Yeah, I mean, when everybody's healthy, I think you can make an argument for him as the second most complete tight end in football behind George Kittle. When George Kittle's healthy, he does everything well. He blocks well, he catches well. His catch radius for a tight end is really good. His route running, every George Kittle, when healthy, does everything excellently. He's just very rarely healthy. But Dallas Goedert, right behind. Now, Dallas will occasionally have one of those drops that it's maddening. So A.J. Brown had a couple too, where the ball right there. But then he makes a play also, like yesterday on 3rd down, where he like kind of one hand tips the ball to himself, still catches it, still turns upfield and gets extra yards. I don't think I've seen the guy get tackled on the first contact ever. And he's one of the few tight ends that I think you can run a slow developing tight end screen to and still get him to get skinny through that hole and make extra yards. He's almost like a running back on a tight end screen in that regard.
Yeah. And when you guys watched the Zach Pascal touchdown, it was all Dallas Goedert. Yep. Everybody was all over Dallas Goedert. Zach Pascal was just just scooting down the field. And that's the most impressive part about this offense, because they win a different way every week. You mentioned the shot plays weren't involved most for a couple of weeks, then bang, here it is. You mentioned cover 2. Lovie Smith is going to play that certainly on a short week. They'll probably go back to running the football. And, people say, why is Jalen running for 3 touchdowns and not throwing for 4 touchdowns? Who cares? It's going to be 8-0.
Yeah.
Who cares? That to me is the most impressive part of the Eagles offense, because typically when you have even these really good teams that are 13-3, well, now it's 13-4 or whatever, these really good teams, they do things well. You know what they do well, but those weeks they lose, it's because teams can stop certain aspects. I don't know why. I've been saying this for a while. If I'm a defensive coordinator playing the Eagles, what am I stopping? I mean, what am I trying to stop first? If you're Bill Belichick, the best we've ever seen, I think we can all agree on that, who's kind of famous for taking one player out of the game. Who are you taking out of the game, and why is it going to make you better as a defense?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really is. And I think that different teams have tried different approaches. The Lions tried to blitz the crap out of Jalen Hurts, and then you saw the Vikings try to just sit back in a soft coverage, and then you see Washington kind of mix a little bit of both. I thought if you go back and watch the Jacksonville game, they actually played pretty. I know it was a driving rainstorm, but Mike Caldwell had a really nice game plan. I mean, he really mixed up.
Well, he came from Tampa Bay, so
right.
Yeah.
And then when the Eagles felt like things weren't going great for them because of it, they just said, "Well, we'll just run the ball," and then they just ran the ball. That's their best fallback when things aren't stable for them. they can just simply decide to play some old school football, run the ball, add a few RPOs and quarterback runs, design runs in there just so that you're not stale with your running game. And then you have an opponent that just has nothing left anymore. You know, they get tired. They don't know what to do. Now they have to play the run and the pass, and it becomes very difficult. The best defense against the Eagles is to have, and they've yet to run into a team that really has done it well, but is to have a ball control offense.
Yeah.
And the offense. Now, you saw the Cowboys. The second Cowboys game, if it means anything, will be interesting. Because the Cowboys philosophically had the right idea. They just got to it too late, which is when the Eagles are in their 5-man fronts, that's when you have to pass on them. You have to kind of work the play action pass if you can, because it's hard with 5 guys up front like that. You got to be able to move the ball on the edges. And then when you get into third down or second down and the Eagles go to a 4-man front, that's actually when you have to run on them, where you have to use your double teams, push them out in the middle. And you saw the Cowboys do that with Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott in the second half pretty well. They put it together. But then you also have to play great defense when the Eagles do have the ball too. So
I am interested with Tennessee and Derrick Henry, because if they can get a lead and they can play from front, and they can just try to run the ball downhill. We talk about the tackling issues.
Right.
That's a game I have an asterisk. I want to see that game. I want to see how it unfolds.
Yep.
But they'll probably get a 2-touchdown lead.
I thought the Colts would also be that type of team, John, until they were on their Sam Ehlinger as a quarterback. So now
And oh, by the way, we had a friend of this show, John Machota, on my CBS show last night, covers the Cowboys for The Athletic. I asked him about with Pollard doing what he did yesterday, if he's going to become the 1 and Zeke becomes the 1A. He said to a man, they all said no down in Dallas. That it's still Zeke's team. The coach says he's got 2 1s. He won't even acknowledge one as a 1A, but they still believe in Dallas. And Jerry was the first to say it. We're only going to go as far as Zeke takes us. Well, they went pretty far yesterday without Zeke in the lineup at all. Pollard was damn good. So you're right. That second Dallas game, they could run the football against them. It could be a competitive game.
By the way, no matter how much Zeke declines, when he plays the Eagles, he looks like the Zeke from 5 or 6 years ago every single time.
Back to fog against the Eagles. You're right. A couple other NFC teams I want to hit on before we let you roll, Mush. The Rams now in a spot of trouble. Seattle looks like they might be real out west. San Francisco's not only ahead of them in the standing, has 2 wins over them.
Oh, Christian McCaffrey, too. Oh.
Came up huge for the 49ers. Are the Rams dead in the water? And are the Packers dead in the water? We got them on the schedule here in a couple of weeks. Aaron Rodgers seems off kilter. He's throwing teammates under the bus. They made one big play last night.
That's normal, by the way. Yeah. That's normal for Aaron.
That's the Packers aren't normal this year.
No,
normal for the Packers is 12 or 13 wins. Yes. They're not getting that, John. This is anything but a normal year for the Green Bay Packers.
I don't think the Rams are out of it, but I would look at San Francisco as the team that I think that will eventually emerge as the winner of that division, and Seattle and LA will be fighting it out for a wild card. There's still so many wild cards. The Bears are 3-5. The Bears are awful, and they're 3-5. They're in a wild card.
I think the Vikings are awful, to be honest.
The Vikings are awful.
They're 6-1. Yeah. I think the Giants are awful. They're 6-2. Yeah. I'm abusing the privilege, Mosh, but I'll make it up to you. At Geoff Mosher NFL, Inside the Birds. InsideTheBirds.com, the podcast with our buddy Adam Kaplan as well. They do a tremendous job. Saw Andrew DeCecco down at the game. He's a great guy as well. Helps out at Inside the Birds. Trade deadline. I forgot about the trade deadline. Is Howie done? He's got the short week. He can't do much as far as getting people ramped up. But is he done? Is he going to make another move?
It would not surprise me if he made another move, John. I know just through sourcing that he has looked at the available running backs, or the running backs who are kind of perceived to be available around the league. And, everybody knows the names, the Alvin Kamaras and the David Montgomery, Kareem Hunt. I'll never say never on anything, but the Kamara one seems like it would be very difficult.
Well, they're not giving up a first-round pick, bro.
Exactly.
The Saints only want their first-round pick back. That's not much.
Sure. And I want $5 million. So that makes sense. The one that seems to stick out to me is Kareem Hunt, because the Browns are and tonight they're playing tonight. So it'll be kind of interesting to see if a move is made before that game or if he dresses or not. But the Browns are getting back one of their injured running backs, Jerome Ford. And they gave some like guaranteed money to Dearness. What is his name? Dearness Foreman? Yeah, Dearness Jackson. Yeah. So they're going to have a logjam here. They're going to have 4 running backs. And of course, it doesn't seem like Kareem Hunt is long for the Browns beyond this year. And they're also, the Browns, even though they're kind of in it, they're really, treading water. If they lose tonight, they're 2-6. So maybe they're not. So I could see the Browns being motivated to move Kareem Hunt. And, I don't know what it's out there about what they want, but what you want and what you wind up getting usually isn't the same thing. Now, from an Eagle side, even though we know Howie has done homework on these guys, they don't have too many mid-round picks to offer, if any, anymore. Right? They have 2 1s, they have a 2, a 3, and then a couple 7s.
7, all the way down to the 7s, yeah.
So I guess it would have to be something fairly creative. But, I mean, Howie has looked at the landscape there, and Kareem Hunt is the guy whose name seems to make, from when I talk to people around the league, they feel like that's the marriage that would make the most sense. I just don't know from a draft compensation standpoint how that would work, given what the Eagles have.
See, if I were the general manager, I'd more be looking to add a defensive secondary backup guy than a guy who will go into a rotational piece. But then again, JG doesn't believe in playing backup, so no, if you really want to go there.
But you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone if you brought in a guy like Kareem Hunt and then moved Boston Scott into your kick return role.
He should be in that role. He should be. He should have started.
Britton Covey's not a kick returner. He's
and by the way,
hold on. Let me just ask you. Do you really believe they don't use Boston Scott because they're risking injury on the kick return, that his massive contribution from the line of scrimmage is something they couldn't afford to put at risk, Moshe?
I don't know what they're thinking on it is. I just know that Britton Covey is not a kickoff returner. And when I see Devontae Smith as a punt returner in a game that you're already pretty in control of, I think, what's the philosophy on that one?
By the way, I'm tilting towards Devontae Smith as the punt returner because I'm watching the London game yesterday. Christian Kirk is returning punts. I was watching the Miami game a couple weeks ago. Tyreek Hill is returning punts. If those guys can return punts, why can't Devontae Smith return punts?
I mean, those guys
I'm tired of this mentality.
I hear you. I just think that, Tyreek Hill is such a superhuman athlete. I get what you're saying. The injury risk is bad, but he's built like a running back. He's a strong wide receiver. And, Christian Kirk, too, he's not like 165 pounds. That's my only thing on Devontae Smith is that, I don't know, you even watch Britton Covey. He looks like he's getting pile drived every single time he gets tackled.
He does. Poor. I love Britton.
And who looked bigger? They showed film of him. Deshaun. I remember when Deshaun first showed up here. He was about 165 pounds and undersized. He's gotten bigger as the years have gone on, and he hadn't lost any speed. It is amazing he can still run like the wind. Don't know that he's going to contribute anything this year, but he can still run. And I'm hoping that Mr. Smith is their returner for the more often than going forward we've seen this year. Moshe, we've kept you more than half an hour. We can't thank you enough for coming on board with us. We will certainly get you up again in a month or so. Thanks for doing this today. We appreciate it greatly.
All right, fellas. Have a great one. You got it.